Hey guys, it's Ben here. Welcome to another episode of The Fix. Today we're looking at one called the Island Lake Reflection. So if you ever find yourself in a small town in Canada called Fernie, you definitely have to check out a place called Island Lake. So it's a little bit of a drive up this gravel road, but you get this lodge, and they have really good lunches there. They have places you can stay, that sort of thing, and you can walk down to the lake. And so that's called Island Lake, and it is really, really incredible there. And there's a small dock in the lake, and you can take canoes out and that sort of thing. There's lots of hiking in the area, skiing in the winter. So it's this really, really cool area, and that's where this photo is taken. So obviously this reflection on the lake, and then the whole lake is bordered by these big pine trees. So really, this could be anywhere in Canada with pine trees on the edge of a lake. It's not that specific, but just take my word for it. Island Lake is really spectacular. So if you find yourself in Fernie or anywhere in Alberta or BC, make your way to Fernie and then make your way to Island Lake. And on this particular day, the whole lake was completely mirrored. So completely no wind at all. It was completely still. It was really, really cool. And I kept trying to take these photos kind of with a wide lens and get this, kind of capture the scene, but it just wasn't doing anything. Because there are, really incredible mountains and that sort of thing, but, just wasn't kind of capturing the scene. So I zoomed in and got this kind of stand of trees on the other side of the lake and got the reflection. And yeah, it ended up being kind of one of my favorite photos. So I've done some pretty heavy processing on this one, as you can kind of tell. But yeah, and it wasn't one of my favorites to begin with. It was one of those things that it sat for a while, and then I was flipping through them one day and came across this one and decided to kind of have some fun playing around with it and doing some processing. So all I'll show you here. We'll hop in and show you the before and after. We'll hide this so you can see a little bit bigger. So before, it's a pretty dull shot. That reflection is there, so it's quite cool, but it ends up looking like this. So that's what I'm going to show you how we do today. It's some people might not like the heavy processing and that sort of thing, but I'm into it. So we'll give it a shot. I'll show you what I've done, and then you can kind of learn to do the same thing yourself. The big thing that we're going to do today is play with the HSL panel. So that's the hue, the saturation, and the luminance, and that kind of changes how different colors look and behave. So in this one, you can see we've got that standard color of the pines, and we're going to kind of make those pine trees a little bit more luminescent. They're going to kind of glow a little bit more and have almost like a bluish hue to them, and that's what, to me, that's kind of what makes this photo. That's pretty boring. They're all kind of the same color, whereas they stand out a little bit more. So that's what we're going to focus on today. We'll still do the standard stuff, kind of work through the basic panel, and then but most of this effect that you're seeing on this one is coming from the HSL panel. So with that, let's get into it. So I'm going to give this one a click reset and back to scratch. So this is what we're going to start with. I don't think I'm really going to crop it much. I might just bring in that bottom and just put that horizon or the shoreline just a little bit off center. Something like that. And I'm going to actually leave the white balance for now. That blue color we're actually going to get from the HSL panel, like I mentioned before, not from the temperature. So we're going to leave that for now. I might, might crank that up just a little bit. Lately I've been trying decreasing the contrast and then kind of getting it back with the whites and blacks, but today we're gonna bump this up and get a bit more contrast going in this. Highlights, like usual, I'll probably bring those down a bit and bump up the shadows, just open up the whole scene. And then whites, I'm starting to clip a little bit of white there. It's probably this area. Yeah, so it's just that a little bit along the shoreline. You can see when I hover over this little triangle up here, it shows in red what is being clipped. I'm not too worried about that. And then we'll drop the blacks down. And blacks are quite important in this one because you can see as soon as I start doing it, you get all the contrast in the trees. And kind of get a lot of that detail. So for now, I think something like that. And then clarity is going to play a big role here too. So you can see if I crank up clarity a little bit too much, it looks kind of cool in the trees, but in this reflection, it's not really doing it for me. So I think I'm just going to put just a bit of clarity. And then while I'm at it, while I'm here, before I do anything else, I'm just going to crank this down and just brush in some clarity. So I'm going to bring that brush size up. We'll play around with that brush a bit more. We'll go heavy on the feathering, and then just just kind of paint that in slowly, and just take some of that clarity and that sharpness out of the water and give it a little bit more blurred, a smoother effect, something like that. So if I press O on the keyboard, it's going to show me where I've brushed so far. So we'll just get a little bit more. I think that's pretty good. So before and after with that clarity, you can see it just kind of dulls it a little bit. So not a huge change, but a little bit at a time. And then I think we'll add a bit of vibrance to bring out some of that color. Cool. I'm going to skip over the tone curve, but this is the HSL panel that we were looking at before. So you can go huge saturation, hue on the left, saturation, and then luminance. And you can also look at all of them at the same time if you want to do it that way. I prefer to kind of click through them. So we'll start with hue. And the yellows and the greens are the real focus here. So that's kind of what the whole photo is actually made of that. But I'm going to go and I'm going to try kind of changing these a little bit. So let's see, something like that maybe. And the greens are what, we're changing it more toward that blue side. And that's what I had been talking about before. That I think that kind of gives it the effect. That slider right there is a pretty important one. Saturation, we'll bring in a bit more here. Because that's really where all this color is coming from. And then I'm actually just going to bring down the general saturation a bit. And then just bump up the green a bit more. So something like that. And then we're gonna just dull those a little bit. So you can see if I take it, this takes it closer to the white bright. And then this goes the dark, kind of blackish color over here. I think I'm gonna bring that down. It's almost blowing out on the shoreline. So really bright colors in there, so I'm just going to bring this down a bit. And same with this, we'll just bring that down a bit too. Cool. So this is what it kind of looked like before without any HSL adjustments, and this is with all that HSL that we've just done. So yeah, big color manipulation there, and it, to me it just kind of makes those trees pop a little bit more and gives them a bit of a glow. So we'll leave that for now. We're going to leave split toning. We're going to zoom in and do a bit of sharpening right now. So I'm zooming into 100%. This one is going to take a lot of sharpening, or it's able to. There's all those little fine details, so something like that. 63 is pretty good. And I've been through this before about what all these do. So you can hop onto previous episodes, and they're it's kind of explained in a few of those. So check those out. But I'll bring the radius down because there's so many fine features in here that I don't want them, one sharpening edge to overlap into the other one. So it's quite small radiuses and then lots of detail. And all I'm doing when it's turning black and white is I'm holding down the Option key. And then again, the biggest one is masking, where everything white is being sharpened and everything black isn't. And I kind of want a little bit in the water not to be sharpened, so I think something like that looks pretty good. Cool. I shot at ISO 160, and it was only 1/50th of a second, so there's really not that much noise, but we'll do a little bit while we're at it. The other thing that I was just thinking is just to check this crop, I'm going to grab my angle tool, and I'm going to make sure that this little section of the shoreline is straight, so it's really easy to do. You just grab that that tool that I just clicked, drag it along what you want to be level. You can see it automatically adjusts it when you let go of it. So now I've just double checked that that is perfectly straight across there. Cool. Remove CA, why not? Let's see what profile corrections do. I kind of like it without it. So we're going to leave profile corrections off, and then we're going to add in some pretty heavy vignetting. So bring that in just to kind of draw that eye to the middle and create a bit of mood. And while we're at it, we're actually going to play around with this a little bit. Let's see. So this is just kind of feeling out what each one of them is doing. We're going to, pretty heavy feathering on that. So I think something like that. And that just lets the highlights breathe through that vignette that we just laid down, but there's not much to see there, so cool. So something like that. The big one that's getting me is just this roundness. I can't really decide which way to go, but I think something like that. I think that looks pretty good. So let's check how far we've come. So I hit Y to see the before and after. So we're getting pretty close. I'm just going to do a couple of, we've already done some brushing in there, that sort of thing. I'm just going to do a few other, area specific corrections. My favorite, this extra pop preset that I've created. So you can see all the settings there, so you can make it yourself. Pop it onto a radial filter and drag it. We'll drag some through the trees, get a bit of that going. Cool. What else do we need? So I think what I did on the original photo is I actually drug a really thin line across the shoreline. I cranked up the exposure just to kind of make it almost appear white. And that was to kind of create that border between the water and the trees. It's just kind of that sheer, almost white border. So I think we'll pop that in there, something like that. You can see when it just kind of popped onto the screen there, it does kind of make that glow a little bit. Cool. So I think something like that. I might just do a little, just on the very bottom of the photo, just a little bit of darkening. So I've got a preset called Darken Bottom, which is kind of this number that I found works really good. So I think something like that. So it just kind of ties the two vignettes from the left and the right hand corner together. Cool. So that's about it. So we'll go full screen on this one. And again, the real feature here of this edit was the HSL panel. So playing with the hues, the luminance, and the saturation, just to kind of fudge those colors around a little bit. So it's not totally realistic or anything like that at all, but it does give this cool effect. And that's what I think photography is all about. Is it is an art form, so it doesn't have to be realistic. In my mind, some people would disagree, but I think it's just fun to play around and make something that's kind of cool to look at. So it is pretty heavy editing on this one, and but that's how I got that effect. And just playing around with those colors, and it's a lot of fun. And there's a lot of stuff you can do, especially in a program like Lightroom, to kind of give different effects and experiment a little bit. So this one was really featuring those color corrections. So play around with that next time you've got a photo and you want to make it look a little bit different and try something new. Check those out. So thanks for joining me on this episode of The Fix, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.